Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to everyone. I hope everyone had a wonderful and great weekend. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. But before I do, I want to acknowledge someone else that has joined us this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for joining me, Ms. Ha. Please make sure that your camera is off and that your audio is on mute. Okay, because
Yeah.
we want to make sure that there's no background noises, and we also want to make sure that the people that are watching the playback video can hear me clearly. Okay, now if anyone has any questions during this video, please be sure to let me know, or you can rewatch the video and drop it in the comment section, so that way I will be sure to answer those questions. Okay, now this week, we are going to finish up our Fundamentals of Math series this week, and we are going to be discussing the following: how to calculate percents in a word problem. We're actually going to be doing that today. How to divide decimals in different formats. That basically is going to deal with some basic math. So, again, make sure that you are very strong with your arithmetic because, again, algebra takes on different formats, but they use the um, basic arithmetic. So, again, make sure that you are very strong with your basic arithmetic. And we're going to discuss how to convert fractions, decimals, and percent. Okay, so this is what we're going to be discussing this week. Again, this will be the final week that we talk about the fundamentals of math series. So for anyone that's watching the playbacks, make sure that you watch all the videos, take your good notes, and study them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, but before we get started, uh, all right. Now, all right. So we are going to go ahead and get started now. But before we begin, I want to make sure that we all understand what a percent is, what actually is a percent, and how does it work. And we see it every day, and how do we use it every day? So that's what I want to talk about for a little while. Um, what is the definition of percent? A percent is just another way of writing a fraction. And I'm actually going to prove that right now. Hey, toolbar. All right. So we are all familiar with this sign. This is the division sign. So we understand that when we look on calculators, we will see this particular button. Okay. Depending on what calculator you have, some calculators may use the slash as their division button. Okay. Now, I want you to make sure that you pay special attention to this particular button. So pretend that that's a button. Okay. We know that this is a division sign, and I'm going to put it. So that's the division sign. So remember, fractions are nothing but division problems. Okay. Now, when we do this, as it relates to percents, a percent is just another way of writing a fraction. And per, I believe, is Latin for four, and cent is Latin for 100. So the actual word percent means for every 100 of something. Okay. So again, so this is my percent sign. Okay. And I'm going to write it out so that way everyone can see it. All right. So my percent sign actually looks like a slanted division sign. So I want to make sure that you all catch that connection. A percent sign is simply more than a slanted division sign, but they both have something to do with fractions. Okay? Now, when we talk about percents, we use percents in different kind of ways, and we use them every single day. We just probably don't realize that we're using them every day. So, for example, when we go shopping, when we go to the grocery store or even to the mall or just anywhere, of course, where you spend money, you can save 25% off of this item when you purchase this item. Or if you buy 3 items, you'll save 20%. So what they're saying to you is, of course, the more you buy, the more money you'll save. But they use percents because, again, percents is just another way of writing fractions. Okay. And we're actually going to get into this example a little later on this week, probably maybe Wednesday or Thursday. But I wanted to go ahead and bring it to your attention today so that way you will know how percents work. So, for example, we have 25%. Anything over 100 is a fraction as it relates to percent. So when I write 25%, in fraction form, I'm actually writing 25 over 100. Because remember, percent means for every 100, okay? Now, of course, with any fraction, at this point of the game, we know that we have to simplify. So we are going to simplify 25 over 100, and that is going to equal 1 over 4. Now, remember, if you do not remember how to simplify fractions or how to reduce fractions, I will be sure to leave the fundamentals of math playlist at the end of this video. There are 5 sections as it relates to fractions. And I believe this part will be in either part 1 or part 2. But I will leave the entire playlist so that way you can go and you can research it for yourself and you can rewatch that video on how to simplify fractions. Okay. Another example would be 37%. So 37% is the same thing as saying 37 over 100. Okay. So in essence, what I'm doing is I am showing you that there is another way that you can write your percents as fractions. And the only thing you have to simply do is put your number over 100. That's it. That's all. Okay. But again, I will get into more detail about that later on this week when we are talking about converting fractions, decimals, and percents. Okay. And the good news is we do not have to simplify 37 over 100 because it's already simplified, which is the good news. All right. Okay, so I have just made this worksheet bigger because I want to make sure that everyone sees it. All right, there we go. All right. Now on your math GED exam, you may come across some problems where you are dealing with percents. Okay, and this actually may be in the beginning or part 1 of your math GED exam. Remember, your math GED exam is divided into 2 parts. You have part 1, which is called mental math, where you will not be allowed to use your calculator. Okay, and in part 2, which is more of the heavier math, such as the algebra and geometry, you will be allowed to use your calculator. So again, it is very important that you make sure that you have the fundamentals of math down pat, meaning that you understand each concept and you know how to apply each concept and when to apply each concept. That's very, very important. Okay. But what I want to do now, we are talking about percent calculations, and our direction says to calculate the percent of or value requested. Now, percents can come in many different formats as it relates to word problems or how to solve word problems. So what I have provided in this video, I have a worksheet that I will be sure to leave as a PDF file in the pinned comment section. So that way, again, you can have access to the file and you can go ahead and download it, print it if you would like to, and it also has the answer sheet to it as well. But what I would like to do for the first 3 problems, oh, I forgot I changed my cursor. All right. For numbers 1, 2, and 3. Okay. I would like to go over these particular problems simply because they are written in different formats, and you have to make sure that you recognize the different formats, because just because you see a percent in a word problem or in a particular problem, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to follow the same steps for all percentage problems, especially as it relates to word problems. So that's the reason why I want to go over numbers 1, 2, and 3, because they are all formatted differently. So let's start with number 1. Okay. Number 1 says 486 is 60% of what amount? So what we are going to have to do for numbers 1, 2, and 3, we are going to have to translate this sentence, this regular sentence, into a mathematical sentence. Okay. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to figure out what certain words mean as it relates to mathematics. The first word I want to look at is the word is. Anytime you are reading a word problem and you see the word is, this word means equal. Okay. So is means equal. 486 is 60% of what amount? The next word I want to look at is the word of. Again, anytime you are seeing or looking at a word problem and you see the word of, this basically means multiplication. So I am going to write the multiplication sign under the word of. The next words I want to look at is what amount. Now, again, this is more so of algebra, simply because we are trying to find the unknown that would make this particular sentence true, or the answer that would satisfy the equation. So what amount, we are going to pick a variable, and I don't know, I'll pick the variable n. So what amount, we do not know what the amount is. So that's our unknown. Okay, so I'm also going to write up here, unknown. Now, again, you do not have to write all of this as it relates to your math GED. If you run across a problem like this, you do not have to break it down in this manner. I am only breaking it down in this video to show you what words represent as it relates to mathematics. Now, the good news is 486, that's our answer. So we have to find something, which is the letter N, or the unknown, that would make this particular sentence true. So what I'm going to do, I am going to write 486 over here. So I'm just bringing it down. And that is a 6. Now, this 60%, we haven't talked about converting fractions, decimals, and percents as of yet. But again, this is just an introduction into how we would convert percents to decimals. And again, we will get into more details about those one day this week. So anytime you have a percent in your word problem, you may have to convert it to a decimal. So remember, when I convert this percent to a decimal, I am simply just going to move my decimal because 60 is a whole number. My decimal is behind the 0. And because it's behind the 0, I am going to move it 2 places over to the left. So when I do that, my answer is going to be 0.60. Okay. So now what I have done, I have changed this English sentence to a mathematical sentence. And because it's a mathematical sentence, that means I can solve to find what my answer would be. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the sentence, the mathematical sentence again, in a more proper mathematical way. So remember, in algebra, the multiplication sign is non-existent. You cannot write this as a multiplication sign because that goes away in algebra. So the multiplication sign actually turns into the letter X, okay? Or the variable X, I should say. So anytime you see a number with a variable or a letter and they are put together and they are equal to something, this is a multiplication problem. Okay, so that's very important that you remember this. And I probably should have typed this out. Okay, so this is a multiplication problem again because I have a number in front of my letter. And the number is actually called the coefficient. So I have a coefficient, which is 0.60, and I have a letter, which in math we call the variable. So when anytime you have a coefficient and a variable put together, that is automatic multiplication because it is equal to something. Now, I do have a video in my higher level math classes where we are talking about how to solve one-step equations. So be sure that you watch that video as well. That will give you more insight and more information on how to solve these types of problems. But because this is a multiplication problem, in order for me to solve it, I would have to do the opposite. And the opposite of multiplication is division. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am going to divide both sides by 0.60. That's very important. The reason why I'm dividing by 0.60 is because the goal in algebra, you want to isolate your variable, meaning that you want your variable to be on one side, your equals, and then another number or fraction or a decimal or something that is equal to that, okay? Now, this is where you are going to have to use your calculator. I'm going to go ahead and pull mine up and hopefully you all can see it. Okay. And if you can't see it on the playback video, my apologies, but I really hope that you can. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I am simply going to type in this particular problem. I'm going to say 486, and I'm going to divide that by 0.60. Now, it's okay if you have that 0 out in front. That's going to happen with most calculators, so that's normal. And I'm going to hit equals, and my answer is going to be 810. I can go ahead and close that. All right. So my answer will be n, which is my variable, is equal to 810. Okay, so that is my answer for this particular problem, meaning if I were to substitute 810 back into where it says what amount, my answer should come out to be 486. But let's try it on the calculator just to see. And just to make sure. So again, you always want to check your answers no matter what problem you're working on. Okay, so I am going to say 0.60, and I'm now going to multiply that by my answer, which was 810. And my answer checks out. My answer is the same, 486, as it is on my calculator. So that lets me know that 810 was the correct answer. Now, again, you have to make sure that you understand how inverse operations work, and you have to make sure that you understand how the arithmetic of it all works, okay? That's going to be very important. Now I'm going to scroll over to number 2, okay? Now, number 2 is written differently than number 1. Okay, let me see if I can still want to make sure that you all can still be able to see. Now, with number 1, we had our answer with an equal sign, a percent, and we had to multiply that by an unknown. For number 2, we have to find the percent. So again, it's very important that you make sure that you are reading very carefully and being mindful of what the directions are asking you to do. Because when certain things are written in different formats, you're not going to follow the same format, okay? That's going to be very, very important. All right, so, and I'm going to make this bigger now so that way you all can see it again. All right, so number 2 says, what percent of 800 is 712? Now, the first thing, again, you want to do is you want to make sure that you can successfully translate what all of these words and, excuse me, what all of these words mean as it relates to math. So again, we have is. Is equal. I have the word of. Of, I know, means to multiply. Now, when we get to what percent, this is very important. When we get to what percent, we are trying to figure out what percentage of 800 is 712. So this would be considered our unknown. So because it's our unknown, I am going to use the letter N. And again, you can use any letter of the alphabet you like. That's really, not as important as in knowing how to solve the problem. Okay. So I'm going to put what percent, because I do not know what the percent is. This is my unknown again. So anytime you see the word what percent or what amount or what is, that is your unknown. That is what you're trying to find out. Okay. So again, I will write unknown at the top here. Now, I am simply now going to add my numbers because I'm not doing anything to my numbers as of right now. Okay, so again, I now have converted this word problem into a mathematical sentence. Now, I'm going to rewrite this problem so that way you can see how it will actually look. Okay, now remember, the multiplication sign in algebra goes away. So I'm going to rewrite this problem as such. Okay, now before, I have a feeling somebody may be thinking this, well, Miss Hampton, what happened to your percent sign? Well, I am still finding the percent, but I didn't need to write it next to the N. And I will show you all what that means momentarily. But this is the problem that I'm going to be working with. This is the problem that I'm going to be solving. Okay, so I have 800 N equals 712. So again, this is a multiplication problem. So I'm just going to, okay. So because this is a multiplication problem, I have to do the opposite to find my answer. And the opposite of multiplication is division. So I am going to divide by 800. And before I go any further, let me explain why. Again, you want to divide by the number that's next to the letter. The reason why is, again, you want to isolate your variable, meaning you want your letter to be by itself. Okay. Now, as you can see, if you are catching the connection, you will see that I have a fraction over here, which is true. Because remember, fractions are nothing more than division problems. Now, when I solve this particular problem, 800 divided by 800, that actually cancels out. And I am left with my variable of n being by itself. And that is exactly what I want, because I want my letter to be on one side of my equation, and equals in the middle, and whatever number fraction on the other side. That's what you want. Now, again, you're definitely going to need a calculator for this. So, and again, I'm not sure if you can see my calculator, but if not, my apologies. So I'm going to take 700 and I'm going to divide it. Oh, not 700, I'm sorry. 712, excuse me. So I'm going to take 712 and I'm going to divide it by 800. Now my answer is in a decimal. So my answer, according to what I did with the calculations, is 0.89. Now, this is not my final answer because the original question said what percent. So this is a key. Anytime you have an answer, anytime you're dealing with these types of problems, what percent of something is equal to something, you're going to get a decimal as your answer. However, you want to make sure that you convert your convert your decimal into a percent. So that was 0.89. Okay. Now, 0.89 is a decimal. So that means I'm going to have to convert my decimal back to a percent. So when I do this, this is real easy. All I'm simply going to do is just move my decimal over 2 places to the right, and I'm going to add my percent sign. Okay, so my final answer is actually n is equal to 89%. Okay. Now, let me also say this. I can guarantee you without a shadow of a doubt that this 0.89 or 0.89 would be a choice as it relates to one of the answer choices on your GED exam. Do not make the mistake of choosing this answer because they are asking you for percent. So it's very important that you make sure that you follow through with this extra step of converting your decimal to a percent. Otherwise, if you mark this as 0.89 as your answer, then that will definitely be incorrect. So again, you have to make sure that you are reading the questions properly and being mindful of what they are asking you to do. That's very, very important. Okay. So there is one more problem that I would like to do, and then that's going to be that. Now, number 3 is just a simple multiplication problem. And the reason why is because, again, I have of. But the good news is my what is going to be my answer. So that's my unknown. That's what I'm trying to find. I know that is equal to the word equal. Now, 65%, I am going to have to convert that percentage to a decimal. So that's simply going to be 0.65. And of is multiply 960. So this is a simple multiplication problem. I don't have to do any division here. Why? Because I have two numbers that are being multiplied together to get a particular solution. Okay, so that's the good news. Okay, so I'm going to clear this, and I'm now simply going to multiply. And my answer is 624. So n, when I multiply 0.65 times 960, my answer is going to be 624. Okay. So again, there are 3 ways that percentage problems can come to you in a word problem. Okay. And I want to review those very quickly. Let me zoom out so that way you all can see. Now, okay, the first way would be simply as described in number 1. 486 is 60% of what amount? So in this instance, you are finding the amount. The answer has already been given to you. So the answer is already here. So you do not have to find the answer for a problem that's written in this way. You're trying to find the missing piece. Think of it like as a missing piece of a puzzle. You have your answer, you have a part of the problem. Now you need to find the other part to make it complete. So that is how you can look at these percent calculations. Okay. So 486, that's my answer, is 60% of what amount? So for number 1, I'm trying to find what amount, what number is going to fit this piece of my puzzle to make it complete. Okay. Same with number 2. The difference is instead of saying what amount, they want to know what percent. So with this particular one, you are going to follow the same steps that you would as number 1. The problem, not the problem, but the extra part would be that you would have to convert your decimal into a percent. Okay. Now, with number 3, it is simply a multiplication problem, all because I have two numbers that I'm multiplying together, and it's going to give me the what, meaning my answer. So when it says what is, that means we have to find the answer. When it says what amount or what percent, that means the answer has already been given to us. And so we have to make sure that we can tell the difference between finding our answer and finding a part of the problem. Okay, that's going to be very, very important. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I am simply going to numbers 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. What I'm going to do is this. I am going to email the worksheet to my students that are already here in the virtual class. If you are watching this as a playback video, I will be sure to drop this particular worksheet as a PDF file in my link, in my pinned comment section, excuse me. Again, that way you can also have access to the worksheets and any other resources that I have as well. Okay. Again, please make sure that you read the description box on my channel. Make sure that you look at the pinned comment section, because most times I do leave information in either one of those places. Okay. Now, for numbers 4 through 10, this is what I'm going to do. Oh, excuse me. And this is why it's important that you make sure that you watch the playback videos, because in my playback videos, I give hints and I give little jewels of wisdom, things that will help you along with your practice sheet. Okay. So for number 4, this is what I'm going to do. Number 4 is the same as number 1. So you're going to solve number 4 the same way that you would number 1. The format and the template is there for you. You just have to make sure that you know where to put your numbers, okay? So what I'm going to, and I'm going to go ahead and type these here. Okay. So you're going to see number 1 as an example. For number 4. Okay. For number 5, we have 624 is 65% of what amount? That is also the same as number 1. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it here. Because again, numbers 4 and numbers 5 follow the same format as number 1. The only thing that's different is the numbers. So this is the reason why you have to make sure that you pay attention, so that way you will know how to solve these problems. Number 6, what is 66% of 250? This is the same as number 3. So I'm going to put C number 3. Okay. So you're going to see number 3 for an example on how to solve it. Okay. Number 7, 552 is 69% of what amount? This is the same as number 1. So again, a lot of these are the same. The only difference, or the only thing that has changed, is the numbers. Okay. Number 8, what is 84% of 1,000? So this example is the same as number 3. Okay. Now, what percent of 275 is 121? This is number 9, and this follows the same format as number 2. And this is the only one that follows that same format as number 2. Okay. Okay. And then last but not least, I have number 10. 429 is 78% of what amount? This follows the same format as the majority of the problems on here, which is number 1. Okay. So what I have simply just done for you, I have just given you hints on how to write out these problems and how to solve the problems for each one of these. So your assignment for my students and for anyone that's watching this as a playback video, you are to complete numbers 4 through 10, and you are to use the examples that have been given to you as a guide to help you. Okay. Now, again, I want to make sure that this video is uploaded for you all so that way you can get an opportunity to work with the video along with making sure that you are following the correct formats on how to set up your problems as well as how to solve them. Okay. So that is your assignment. The answer sheet will come along with this particular worksheet. So again, if you are watching this as a playback video, when you click on the PDF file, there are going to be 2 sheets. You're going to have the regular percent calculation sheet, and the second page will be the answer sheet. You can check your answers to make sure that you are going about this the right way. If you have any problems, if you have any questions, I do not mind going over a couple of problems the first 10 minutes of class tomorrow. But again, we want to make sure that we give the same amount of time for the different concepts as it relates to the fundamentals of math. I want to make sure that I give those concepts the same equal amount of time as well. So I want you all to attempt. I want you to do your best, and I want you to try. Nothing beats a failure than a try. Always remember that, because that's important. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the screen share. Okay. So I'm going to stop the screen share right now. And okay. And again, I'll be sure to email this worksheet for you. If you're watching this as a playback video, I'll definitely be sure to leave it in the pinned comment section, so that way you can have the practice along with the answer sheets as well. Okay, so again, told you class was not going to be too long. I wanted to make sure that you all had an opportunity to work on these particular problems along with watching the playback video. So hopefully the playback video will be available to you all within the next 30 minutes, along with other resources that I'll be sure to pin down in the pinned comment section as well. Okay, so I want to say thank you all so very much for joining me this morning. I really do appreciate the time that you're taking out to come to class, and being diligent and being faithful is not going unnoticed. And I really, again, I cannot stress enough how much I definitely appreciate Ms. Ha as well as Ms. Brittany faithfully coming to class. Okay, so if you have any questions about the worksheet, you can email me. You can send me a text. Please make sure, though, that you are mindful. I want you to try, and I want you to try your best first. And if you find yourself getting frustrated with a problem, go ahead, skip it, go to the next one, okay? Because this, again, this is practice for you all taking your GED exam, okay? And it's very important that we have the techniques and the tools, and that we use them wisely. So use your time wisely as you're working on these worksheets and on these practice sheets, okay? So again, thank you all so very much. Ms. Hampton really appreciates each and every one of you. Thank you for watching the playback video. Again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And again, I'll be sure to leave the fundamentals of math playlist. It'll probably be on this side, or it might be on, I don't know, but it'll be on one of these sides right here. Okay, so Miss Hampton loves you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And until tomorrow, I bid you all a blessed day and a blessed week ahead of you. And I will see you all on tomorrow. Lord willing, if the creek don't rise. I will see y'all then. Bye.